Welcome to our introductory lecture on economics. Today, we are going to explore the fundamental concepts that drive how societies function, from individual choices to global markets. Let's start with a basic definition. At its core, economics is a social science. It studies human behavior, specifically how we handle the production, distribution, and consumption of goods and services. The most critical concept here is that resources are scarce, but they have alternative uses. This brings us to the fundamental economic problem. We live in a world where human wants are virtually unlimited, but the resources to satisfy those wants are strictly limited or scarce. Because we cannot have everything, scarcity forces us to make choices. Economists assume that people behave rationally, meaning they make choices designed to maximize their own satisfaction or utility. Because resources are scarce, every society and economic agent must answer three basic questions. First, what should we produce? This is about allocative efficiency. Second, how should we produce it? This deals with technical efficiency and methods. And third, for whom are we producing these goods? To illustrate scarcity and choice, economists use a model called the Production Possibility Frontier, or PPF. Imagine an economy that only produces two goods, rice and maize. If we use all our resources for rice, we operate at point B and produce zero maize. If we want more maize, we have to give up some rice. We simply cannot increase the production of both goods simultaneously with limited resources. Let's look deeper at the PPF. Any point directly on the curve means all resources are fully and efficiently employed. A point inside the curve, like point X, means some resources are sitting idle or being wasted. A point outside the curve, like point Y, is currently unattainable. To reach point Y, the economy would need to discover new resources or improve its technological productivity. When we make a choice along that PPF, we give something up. This is called opportunity cost. It is defined as the value of the next best alternative foregone. For example, imagine a government has a budget of 5 billion kwacha. They can either pay striking lecturers, go on a holiday, or pay minister gratuities. If they choose to pay the lecturers, the opportunity cost is the holiday they had to give up. How do economists actually study these choices? Like other sciences, economics relies on the scientific method. Economists observe real-world facts, formulate a hypothesis about cause and effect, and then test that hypothesis. If a hypothesis is continually tested and widely accepted, it becomes an economic theory or principle used to predict future behavior. Because economists cannot easily conduct controlled laboratory experiments on whole societies, they rely on assumptions. One major assumption is the other things equal principle, also known as ceteris paribus. This means we assume certain factors remain constant while we study the relationship between two specific variables. Economic theories are essentially abstractions, which are simplifications of a very complex real world. Once we have our theories, we apply them through policy economics. This is where theory meets real-world action. The process involves stating a clear economic goal, determining various policy options by weighing their costs and benefits, and finally, implementing and evaluating the chosen policy to see if it actually works. Economics is generally divided into two main branches. The first is microeconomics. Think of this as looking at the economy through a microscope. It focuses on specific individual units, like single industries, firms, and households. It looks at how these specific agents allocate resources, how individual prices are set, and the supply and demand for specific goods. The second branch is macroeconomics. The prefix macro means large, so this branch looks at the economy as a whole. Instead of individual prices, it looks at broad economic aggregates. This includes massive variables that show the overall pulse of a nation, such as total gross domestic product, national unemployment rates, overall inflation, and exchange rates. When governments look at the macroeconomy, they generally have a few primary goals in mind. They want sustainable economic growth that does not ruin the environment. They aim for full employment, where anyone willing to work can find a job. They also strive for price stability, which does not mean zero inflation, but rather a steady, low to moderate inflation rate, along with a fair distribution of wealth. As we analyze these economic goals, we must avoid common logical traps. First is the fallacy of composition, assuming that what is good for one individual is automatically good for the whole economy. Second, remember that correlation does not equal causation. Just because health and education improve together does not mean one directly caused the other. Finally, avoid the post hoc fallacy. Just because event B happens after event A, it does not mean A caused B. Finally, we must distinguish between positive and normative economics. Positive economics deals with objective facts and cause and effect relationships. It describes what is, for example, stating that the price of copper has risen. Normative economics, on the other hand, involves subjective value judgments about what ought to be, like saying the price of food should be lower. Economists usually agree on positive facts, but often debate normative policies. To wrap up, economics is fundamentally about how we allocate scarce resources in a world of unlimited wants. Every choice has an opportunity cost, and models like the production possibility frontier help us visualize these trade-offs. Whether we are looking at individual households in microeconomics or the entire nation in macroeconomics, understanding these principles helps us make better, more rational decisions.